pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. I have had a good reading week, but I don't have much to tell you. I didn't finish anything. So it's going to be a short reading week, and I will give you a warning that although I'm not going to do a long rant, it's going to end on a very somber note about recent events in Canada. I've decided to save that to the end. But, so it feels weird to be putting in thoughts on books that are starting out good, talking in a flippant way about a book that I bailed on, and to start with such exciting news for me personally. But welcome to my life. I'm going to put it all in one video. So, I got a new bookish tea. I don't feel competitive with Greg of Supposedly Fun about anything except his t-shirt collection. So this just came in the mail yesterday. Isn't that fabulous? I always am so nervous about ordering stuff online because the Japanese sizes are different, and from one brand to the next, and I have to Google translate the measurement chart, and so I took a gamble on this. It fits perfect. It fits to a T, so I'm going to order, I think, 3 or 4 more bookish t-shirts from the same company. As I have been going back and looking at videos I made in the first year of my BookTube channel, 2017, I am still wearing all those t-shirts, so it's time to get rid of them all. I love this. It is a they're called stamps, but they're like emoticons that are part of the famous Japanese chat app called Line, L-I-N-E, and they have thousands and thousands of different stamps, is what they call it. Stamps or emoticons that are the company designs, and then also anybody can design and try to sell them on their store. And this series is great, but I've never found this bookish one with these guys, but these characters do a lot of romantic ones that I send to my husband and no one else. Okay, it's hot and I'm not in a very ideal location in terms of balancing books and stuff, but I don't have much to say about books. I have one bail to tell you about. I didn't get much further with The Withered Root by Rhys Davies. This was a Welsh novel published in 1927. I had it on my shelf for a long time. I decided to try it for the 1900 to 1950 readathon, and I didn't think the writing was good enough, or the character development was good enough. It's just, I thought it was sloppy prose, uninteresting prose, and the characters weren't jumping off the page. I have read one non-fiction book by Rhys Davies. I think it's called The Story of Whales. I'll put the cover gif up here. And I loved it, but based on this, his most well-known novel, he's not a novelist for me. I have started 3, and I have something that I want to admit, because I'm getting older. Oji-san, as they say in Japan. Oji-san nateru. I'm becoming an old man. So these new glasses I got about a year ago, they're great. I think they're still the correct prescription, but I am now having trouble with really small print. I first noticed it really reading Christos Cholkas' novel, whatever that was called. It was very tiny print, and I got the ebook to read it. And I've done the same with this Barbadian novel, In the Castle of My Skin by George Lamming. The print is just too small for my eyes. I can't read it for very long. So I want to rave about a website that I've kind of rediscovered. It's called Internet Archive. I think I'll put the link in the show notes. I think it's internetarchive.org. And they have scanned books. I don't think it's affiliated with Google. Maybe it is. I don't know. I don't care. But it's not obviously associated with Google. But it's like a lending library of scanned books that aren't otherwise available in ebook format. And I found In the Castle of My Skin there, and so I'm reading it, and I can make the page go as big as I want, and it's free to borrow. You can borrow for 1 hour, you can borrow for 2 weeks. I suppose if it's a really popular book, you might have to wait. They do have waiting lists, but anyway, I'm also reading the Mozambican collection of short stories, and I can't remember the title. Put the GIF up here, also through Internet Archive. So that's a place to check out if you're looking for hard to find books that are kind of out of print and off the beaten track. If it's older than, say, I've had really good luck with anything that's over 30 years, published over 30 years ago. I think there's some copyright stuff with more recent things or whatever, but this one is there. And this one, wow, I love it so much. I've read 30 pages. It was originally published in 1953. I just love the writing. I think the main character is a young boy, maybe 6 or 7 years old, and it's his birthday, but they can't celebrate his birthday because, one, his mother's too poor to make much of a fuss, and two, because there is a torrential, they don't call it tsunami, what do they call it? A big rainstorm that's just flooded the village. And in the wake of that flood, there is an altercation between the next door neighbors. The next door neighbor, little boy, he's a bad boy, and he killed her vines on the fence by standing on them or something. And so then that boy's mother just flies off the handle and violently attacks her son to punish him. And so then the protagonist's mother comes to the little boy's defense. And between all of that violence and screaming and whatnot, the fence between the two yards is broken down. It's pushed down flat, and it goes from there. Very vivid writing, just poetic enough for me to appreciate the writing, but not overdone so far. I have a fabulous feeling about In the Castle of My Skin by George Lamming, and this I am reading for Caribathon, Invisible Cities, and also for Karen of Run Right Reads book club. This is her pick for her book club this month. So it's a threefer. I have also started Elizabeth Jane Howard's debut novel from, I believe it was 1950, The Beautiful Visit. This is a buddy read with Leah from Calgary. We buddy read her second, I think, novel last year, The Long View, and absolutely loved it. And I'm absolutely loving this one too. It's very different. It's not the stunning literary novel that her second one was, but it's still so impressive and engrossing. This one is told through a child, and I'm loving it, this story. I think she's a teenager. I think she's 14. She's in a British family, and I think it's in London, but you know me, I don't pay attention. It's in a city anyway. I think it's London. And she has led a very sheltered life with her mother married beneath her class, and her father is a very unsuccessful kind of ne'er-do-well music composer and piano teacher. And the family isn't necessarily all that happy, but it's not horrifically unhappy either. She gets sent to visit a family, and I've kind of lost track. Let me check that. I need to know that. Yeah, the family were very distant cousins of the mother's, and she's sent to stay with them, and she's never met them, and she's never been away from home. She didn't have any friends. The first couple chapters were about her trying to befriend somebody in the park, and that didn't necessarily go that well, but maybe there will be further developments later in the novel. And then she's sent to visit this family very distant cousins, and she's so nervous, and she ends up really liking it's a large family, and she ends up connecting with one of the sisters, and there's some weird people in the family. I just love the writing and the characterization. I'm 60 pages in. I have to get up to about 100 and some pages by tomorrow or the next day, which I'll have no trouble devoting myself to this one because it's a joy to read. Elizabeth Jane Howard. We need to dust off the 20th century British literary shelf and throw away a bunch of those dusty old men and center Elizabeth Jane Howard because she is the real deal. Yeah, starting out fabulously. And Pete's Underpants, a gay novella by Bertie Marshall. This is for a Zoom chat I'm going to be having tomorrow night with Dan of the Weird Book Club, so I'll withhold any thoughts until then. I'm about halfway through. I will easily finish it up in time, and you can hear what we both thought of it when that video goes live. So that's what I've started. I am reading too many books, as I usually am, but it's now just completely out of control. But I have to say that I don't feel panicked like I did when I got to this place reading 30 books. I think I'm reading 31 or 32 now. I seem to need to create this for myself, And I think the way out of it, I don't feel that I need to dig myself out of it. I'll tell you in a minute what I will be starting. But I'm going to cut it off for the most part. But for whatever reason that my subconscious creates this, I have always been somebody who had trouble setting limits, delaying gratification. And I'm not here to analyze myself, and I don't want you to analyze me in the comment section, but I'm having such a good time. And I'm not, I didn't push myself to try. It would have killed me to finish any books this week. And I decided, you know what? I'm reading books that just appeal to me out of it's now taller than one stack. I think it's 3 stacks of books that I'm currently reading. And I just pick, other than keeping up with buddy reads, I just pick what kind of appeals to me in the moment, and that's what I'm just going to keep doing. So there may be stuff from my Pride TBR that I don't get to with this more lackadaisical approach, and that's fine. I'm reading some great Pride stuff, and I may not get to everything on my, as usual, overly ambitious TBR. But no, I always think back to the William Blake quote, which has spoken to me with various things like this in my life. If the fool would persist in his folly, he would become wise. I'm still waiting for that wisdom, but, I hang on to that one. So, regardless of whether I finish anything this week, I will be starting one more because it's for a buddy read. Marriage of 1,000 Lies, a novel by S.J. Sindu. Sindu is a Sri Lankan American writer. Born in Sri Lanka, raised in Massachusetts, and I find Sri Lanka much easier to pronounce than Massachusetts. So this is a novel about a gay man and a lesbian. They're both from Sri Lankan American Tamil families that get married to deal with their very conservative parents. So it's a story that's been told before. I look forward to seeing how S.J. Sindu does. This is a buddy read with Jeremy I won't look up his channel name right now. I'll put it in text below, but this will be our first ever buddy read, and in order for me to check in about 10 days, I'll need to start this one in the coming week. I think that's probably all I will be starting, but if I finish, I don't know, maybe at least 2 books this week, I will start my pick for Lebanon for Invisible Cities, and that is Rawi Hage's DeNiro's Game. Rawi Hage, I need to know how to pronounce his name. Yeah, and my other iPad is gone dead because it's too old. So I think it's Rawi Hage. I will put it in audio correction if need be. Hey, well, yes, I'm finding several different pronunciations, but the one that is most common when the author is in the room hearing somebody introduce him is Rawi Hage. Rawi Hage. He is a Lebanese-Canadian writer, and he is the partner of Madeleine Tien, the author of my favorite book of all time, Do Not Say We Have Nothing. I have never read anything by him. This is one of his more well-known ones. It was originally published in 2006, and this is a 2012 reprint in the Anansi A-List series of Can Lit. It won the Impact Prize in 2008. 2 young men caught in Lebanon's civil war. That's all I need to know. But if I haven't finished at least 2 books this week, I won't be starting this week, but this will be the next book that I start. Okay, that's it for the books, and I'm going to try to be very brief with my comment on recent events in Canada. If you don't want to watch at least mildly ranty finish to this video, please don't. But before you go, please at least go and watch Kim's video, Kim of Native Lady Book Warrior. She put up a video yesterday that was incredibly powerful, which was really addressed to non-Native Americans, non-Indigenous people on social media, and how to support the Indigenous bookish community and what not to do. It was profound, and I told her that I wasn't going to speak very much about this issue, but I want to shine a light on what she said. I want you to go watch what she said. As a white Canadian living in Japan, it's been painful, yes, and very easy for me to put it out of my mind what's going on back in my home country. So the 2 events are, and the first one is, and this has been an ongoing issue in Canada for decades, and if you're Indigenous, for centuries, but white Canadians a few of us finally started to wake up to it in the last few decades. The residential schools, boarding schools where the Canadian state, through our racist police force from in creation to now, stole, here's some pictures by, I've forgotten his first name, somebody Monkman, that accurately depict what that was like. Stole kids from their Indigenous parents. Began in the late 19th century and continued until 1996 when I was 30. And white Canadians, we were just oblivious to it, partly because the government didn't broadcast what they were doing, but it's just so easy to exploit the resources of our newfound land and not give a shit about the people that we displaced and committed genocide against. And those kids over a century were sexually abused, physically abused, neglected, everything, and just denied of their culture. The whole point of the project, and I think something similar happened in the US, was to teach the Indian out of the kid. And so it just caused all kinds of terrible problems within families, and so many kids were lost. So whenever a kid died, the nuns, or what it was mostly run by Catholics and a few other religious denominations, they would just tell the parent the kid ran away. So Indigenous people and survivors of the residential schools have long said there are all kinds of unmarked graves on the premises of these boarding schools, which have all now been closed or repurposed. But about 2 weeks ago, a grave containing the remains of 215 kids was found at Kamloops in what is now British Columbia. That they thought there was about 50 people that had died at the largest residential school in Canada. And they found, on top of the ones they had documented, these completely undocumented kids, 215 of them, their graves have been found. So that has just brought everything up again and just kind of torn the scab off the wound for Indigenous peoples around the world, but in Canada. So please watch Kim's video. It's beautiful, it's heartrending, it's a call for action and the right kind of action, and it's especially a call for people like me to just shut up. I know I'm speaking about it right now, but I have things to say as a white Canadian, as a white settler Canadian. So that has been going on, for more than 100 years, but that has been freshly up in Canadian news and whatnot. And then about 3 days ago, in London, Ontario, a 20-year-old white supremacist jerk mowed down a family of Muslim Canadians who at 8:45 p.m. were out going for a walk in their neighborhood because there's nothing else you can do during the pandemic. And because it's Canada, anybody should be able to go for a walk. And he targeted them, mowed them down, and killed the grandmother, the parents, the teenage daughter, and the 9-year-old son is the only survivor of that mass murder, and he is in hospital, and he has lost his entire family. Islamophobia is another huge problem in Canada, and now that I've told you what happened, I don't have any other words other than just to say that as a white Canadian, those are the things that are bothering me the most. They're the most recent, but also just Canada is a cesspool of corruption and dishonor. Our Governor General, who is the appointed head of state, the Queen's representative, it's a colonial thing non-Canadians won't understand, unless you're maybe from Australia or another former British colony. But she is this famous astronaut, and she was chosen by Prime Minister Trudeau, and he didn't do very much vetting on her because she had power harassment, work harassment issues at all of the jobs that she had. Her employees had always had filed complaints against her, and some woman had filed an assault charge 20 years before. Anyway, she got to the Governor General's office and residence and just abused her employees like there was so many quit, and there was sexual harassment and allegations. And so she has resigned. I think we need to abolish. I'm not necessarily in favor of abolishing the monarchy, although I wouldn't care too much if that was a decision the polity ever made. But the institution of the Governor General, I mean, they need to vet people, but I think we can do away with it. She, even though she quit in disgrace, she will get I think it's a 6-figure pension for the rest of her life. And she was a monster. And our military, I mean, the military is always a bad idea, so whatever, but our military have been saying they're tackling sexual harassment in the military for 10 years, and in the last 4 or 5 months, all the top brass of the military, the top people, have all resigned because of accusations of sexual assault, sexual abuse, sexual misconduct. So it's like Canada is just rotten. It's too white. Canada is institutionally, systemically white supremacist and a dangerous place to be for anybody who doesn't look like me. And I don't know what to do about that. I don't live there right now. If I did live there, there would be things I could do. Maybe there's things I could do from here, but I really hate that this has happened, and it makes me hate Canada. I have to be honest about that. I fucking hate my country. I think it was a bad idea. It is a bad idea. It's dangerous. Don't go there if you're not white. So, yeah. Thanks for watching.